When I heard this story, it hit me in a weird way. You ever find out something years later and just sit there thinking, man, what could have been? That was me today. Because sometimes the biggest moments for a franchise aren't the ones that happen. It's the ones that almost did. And as Dolphins fans, we know how thin the margin is in this league. One decision, one draft pick, one conversation behind closed doors, and the entire trajectory of a defense, maybe even a playoff run, can change. That's what makes this one sting a little differently. It's not just about talent. It's about fit, culture, and how close we were to something completely different. What happened behind the scenes is honestly kind of shocking. And when you hear how it all unfolded, you start replaying the last few seasons in your head. But before we dive into it, if you're a real Dolphins fan who lives and breathes this team like I do, go ahead and hit that like button. Subscribe to Dolphins Nation Report. We're a brand new channel trying to build something special, and our first goal is 100 subscribers. If you care about honest, passionate Dolphins talk, you're in the right place. Now, let's talk about what really happened. The player we're talking about is Maxx Crosby, five-time Pro Bowler, one of the most relentless edge rushers in the NFL. The guy has 69, 5 career sacks, and 133 tackles for loss. That's not just good. That's franchise cornerstone production. And he straight up said he didn't want to come to Miami. On the Pat McAfee show, Crosby talked about his top 30 visits before the 2019 draft. One of them was with the Dolphins. And according to him, it was rough. Coaches were super hard on him during meetings. So uncomfortable that he told his agent, I don't want to come here. Tell Miami don't draft me. Let that sink in. The only meeting he actually liked in Miami was with Patrick Graham, who was the Dolphins' defensive coordinator for one season and is now the Raiders' DC. That's it. One positive interaction. At the time, this was the first year of Brian Flores in Miami. That regime was known for being tough. Hard culture reset, accountability, old school mentality. And look, I respect building toughness. But when you hear that a player who turned into one of the league's most dominant pass rushers walked away from that visit saying, "Don't draft me," you start asking questions. Now, technically, Miami didn't even have a 4th-round pick that year. Crosby ended up going in the 4th round to the Las Vegas Raiders in the 2019 NFL Draft. The Dolphins had traded that pick away. Instead, they took guard Michael Dieter in the 3rd round. Dieter started 23 games over 4 seasons before leaving in free agency. Solid depth guy. But let's be honest, not a game changer. And here's the twist. After 4 rounds, Miami still hadn't addressed edge rusher. So in the 5th round, they drafted Andrew Van Ginkel. Now I'll say this, Van Ginkel was a bright spot. He developed well, played with heart, made big plays for us. I loved watching him compete. But he wasn't Maxx Crosby. And in 2024, he left in free agency and turned into a star with the Minnesota Vikings. So when you zoom out, think about this. Imagine pairing Maxx Crosby with the defensive talent Miami has had over the past few years. Imagine that motor, that production, that edge-setting dominance on this defense during our playoff pushes. We've been searching for consistent elite edge pressure forever. Forever. And to hear that he basically told his agent to keep him away from Miami? That hurts. But here's where I get real as a fan. Part of me respects it. Crosby knew what environment he wanted. He bet on himself. He landed in Vegas and became the face of their defense. That's player conviction. The other part of me wonders, did Miami's culture at the time push away a future superstar? Was that super hard approach necessary? Or did it cost us a cornerstone piece? And here's the bigger picture. This league is about margins. We talk about Super Bowl windows. We talk about being one pass rusher away. Well, sometimes that pass rusher was literally in the building. Now fast forward to today. The Dolphins are in a different era, different leadership, different culture. The window is now. Every roster decision matters. Every draft evaluation matters because the AFC is brutal. You don't get do-overs. And stories like this, they remind you how thin the line is between contender and champion. At the end of the day, this doesn't change the present, but it definitely makes you think about the past. And as Dolphins fans, we've had enough what-if moments to last a lifetime. But here's the thing. This team is still knocking on the door. The pressure is on. The expectations are real. If we're serious about a Super Bowl run, we can't afford to miss on impact players anymore. The margin is too small. Let me know how you feel about this one. Does it bother you? Or is it just part of the draft process and nothing more? If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit that like button and drop your thoughts in the comments. This is Dolphins Nation Report. We're just getting started, and we're pushing toward our first 100 subscribers. If you're a Dolphins fan who wants real, honest takes, no sugarcoating, subscribe and be part of building this community with us. Let's keep the conversation going. Fins up.